This conference will now be recorded.
All right. So looks like we got a few people in here today. That's cool. So, hey, Chris, how's it going, man?
Pretty good. Yourself?
Hanging in there. Hanging in there.
All right.
Just count
All right.
me as half a person.
Hey, man, how you feeling?
I've been better.
Like half a person? Yeah. Well, hopefully you get better soon, man.
Working on it.
Yeah. We'll take it easy on you today.
Yeah, appreciate it.
All right. So, all right,
No,
Joe, good
no,
to
we
see you,
won't,
man. What's that?
So no, we won't.
Oh, gosh.
Now, hey, quick one, Jason. I did run a batch of 50 cups last night across the Rotoboss and performed flawlessly.
Yeah.
Could you repeat what was the first part you said?
I said I run a batch of 50 cups. I actually run a batch of 50 kind of odd shaped cups. It's a brand they sell on Amazon and Walmart and Target, Contigo, that's got like the little button that auto seals the top, like a spring loaded top. So it was almost like a Pilsner glass. It's kind of wavy shaped, but I run 50 of them. Got it set up and dialed in and run 50 of them flawlessly. Calculated it was right at about 8 cents a second is what it was printing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they're like ATM machines if you get a batch, especially. The all metal one is what I'm waiting for. And that mid-September or something, if all goes well, I think is what he had said. So.
Yeah, they should all be here. I've got everything but the heel plate and the clamping mechanism. Everything else I have. So those are the things now.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, cool. Looks like there's some people on here that could be new. So if the way this thing works is we don't really have a script. So if you have a question, just jump in whenever you can and ask as many as you want. We'll do our best to answer them for you. So that's the primary thing. And then we'll fill in the blanks with some whatever we can come up with. So feel free to jump in whenever. I did play with the fiber a little more. You remember I said I was going to let it run if it took 48 hours to cut all the way through that 3mm aluminum or whatever it was. And I discovered that focus is just as important there because it ran probably the last 2 hours and wasn't even cutting anything. So I've got some, I'm going to set up with Zach. I don't know if any of you are looking at the fiber stuff, but he's going to do some one-on-one with me and kind of get up to speed on some of that. And we're going to launch that thing pretty soon. Grant's not on here, so I won't speculate, but I'm ready. As ready as I'll ever be, but I drive it like I stole it anyway. So we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, from what I've seen, Zach is the man. He knows way more than hopefully any person ever should have to know about him.
Yeah. So, and I did get the 3D script and played with it a little bit, and I was able to get some decent relief out of a skull that I was doing. That's what they were using on that sample. It's a plug-in for EasyCAD to import a STL. So I've been playing with that, and that's pretty cool. So
okay, so quick one on the 3D. So does that run EasyCAD 2 controller? Because I thought you had to have EasyCAD 3 with a different controller.
Well, for a true 2.5 or 3D, you do have to have that other controller. We have the EasyCAD 2 and the standard controller, but let's see, EasyCAD, got it somewhere. There's the user's manual. It's called the Face to 3D plugin, and it is for EasyCAD 2.
Okay.
So it just breaks down the layers for you and just computes it, outside of the controller. Okay. So it's pretty neat. Then that guy got really deep there. I mean, that's a lot. So, and he's good at this. So I've been watching him too. But anyway, I've got the plug-in down here and then the skull that I was using to test with. And there's a new one. He fixed the skull so the teeth are better. So I'm going to upload the latest one when I get a minute.
Okay. What wattage laser is that on? Do you know?
It's
What his?
the one that he did. I think it was a 30.
Okay.
I think that was a 30 watt. Might have been a
So you should.
50, but I'm pretty sure it was a 30. And
Okay.
there's his speeds and powers that he used for it. But he made a video on how to do it too. So it's cool stuff.
Deal. Yeah, that was one of the drawbacks on fibers was the EasyCAD 2 versus the more expensive with the EasyCAD 3 for 3D. And then one other thing I saw on MOPA versus non-MOPA for color engraving. Have you come across? I think his name is Chris Wilkes. Is his name? He does.
I don't think
He's in some of the groups with Zach and stuff. But he does some pretty nice color engraving with the non-MOPA with the JPT just by adjusting the frequency. So instead of having like a true color like that, it's more of like a iridescent. So as you rotate it, it's different colors.
Yeah, that's crazy too, because I came across that inadvertently because I was making colors accidentally, so I was wondering, hey, how are we doing that if they're saying you have to have a MOPA? But as a matter of fact, I did see one of his posts where he posted that he was getting those colors. I didn't remember his name, but now that you mentioned that, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the same one. I'll go back and look.
Almost certainly. So what source does the Aurora have in it? Is it a JPT or is it a Raycus or?
It's a Raycus.
Okay. Yeah, because the JPT, if you get the higher or the right one, I think you can get up to 600 kilohertz, which then opens up a lot more of the color spectrum as you get that higher frequency.
Right. And I think it tells in the manual. I don't know if I put the manual. Oh, you remember the drilling the hole to make the extra air, that little bit of extra air for the reference for that clog sensor, that flow meter that was in the BOFA extractor? BOFA looked at my video with me drilling a hole, just to make the air inlet, and they said that's exactly what they would have told me to do because it's not adjustable in the software. The reference point isn't. So that's kind of funny that that's their fix. I worked for a printer company one time, and one of their technical knowledge base documents specifically said hold the unit 6 inches from like the floor, concrete, something hard, and drop it to reseat an edge card because it was so difficult to get to. That was their legitimate real fix that was published, is a gravity reset. And I thought that was pretty funny. So when BOFA said, yeah, just drill a hole in the hose, that's our official method, I was like, wow, that works. I like their style. So that was kind of nuts too. Let me see if I can find I think it told what the MOPA was, the frequency. Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's the manual, the newest one I've got. And okay, so on the MOPA, it's 50 to 100K.
Oh, so hold on. That's on the MOPA is 50 to 100K?
50 to 100K for the F200. Maybe that's not the MOPA.
No, that's not the MOPA. The big difference in the MOPA will be the pulse width modulation rather than the frequency. I think that's your 50 to 100, your Raycus, I think, just your standard.
Yeah. So I think they do all have the Raycus sources in them. And I forget what the Galvo is. It's a Sino. I don't know if that matters too much. I've never heard of that one. But we'll get some more specs on it as I dig a little bit deeper. I dug into the exhaust, so I dug into the electric a little bit to see. We've got a special TL timer board on there for that one. And actually, we've got the wiring diagrams and stuff, so I'm going to go through them and familiarize myself with them a little bit. So I'm also looking at seeing about the Z being controlled by the controller instead of the separate autofocus board, because this has an independent standalone autofocus system in it. And I don't know if that could be integrated where we could actually have a height measurement and say, I want you to go X millimeters, on the Z axis. That would be pretty cool. Of course, that's probably what that 3D card does, is allows that ability, because that's all that is, I think, is changing your focal point and just doing a steps per pass kind of thing. So I don't know if it's even doable, or they probably would have. So anyway, I could talk about that stuff all day. But like I said, if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in.
Did you use wobble when you're doing those cuts on aluminum?
Is what?
Did you use wobble when you're
No.
doing those cuts?
As a matter of fact, I tried some cuts. Yeah, when I was doing that cut for that long, you're right, I was using wobble. And then Richard Wills said it may be better to just do another line offset just a little bit from it and change the frequency instead of using wobble. He said that can cut better sometimes. But I think I have an understanding of what wobble does. It just gives it a wobble. But as far as how that helps, sure. So I'm still real new to all this, so that's why I'm going to employ Zach to help me out and give me a boost.
And I think the idea behind wobble is because your focus, because you're coming down at an angle, right? The wobble's going to effectively knock off a little bit of that edge, so you can cut deeper into it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
I've got a
So that the
five-
kerf doesn't occlude the beam as it goes. Yeah. Okay.
Kind of similar to why you use the high pressure air on the CO2 to clear your kerf out, right? When you're
Right.
cutting, blow the debris out to make sure you keep cutting deeper.
Right. Cool.
Hey Brian, when I cut my 1 mil stainless with my 60-watt MOPA, I just used the offset, and it was pretty quick.
I gotcha. Okay, so you're talking about instead of using wobble, just to put an offset on it. Okay, so
Yeah, wobble seemed to warp it a lot more, but maybe I was pretty new to it. Maybe I just had my settings off a bit.
Gotcha. I keep forgetting to check the chats. Let me find out where that little window is, because I think Keith had said there's a couple of things in there. Keith wanted to know, has anyone made a viewing window for the tube? It's so cool to hide. I guess you could. You could cut the top out and put a piece of acrylic or put some tempered glass in there if you wanted it to match. So yeah, I'd say that's doable. That is pretty neat. That's a good idea, because it does glow. It's a neat effect. Well, cool. I'm glad you're on here, Gary. It's been a while.
Yeah,
You've been busy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been nuts. I'm still at work doing layouts.
Yeah. Gotcha. Cool beans. All right. Well, has anybody got anything? Any news? Okay.
Anybody running Lightburn 1.0 yet?
I am. I've been running the beta 0.25 for a while, and I'm pretty sure that's the same one, and it's been pretty problem free. But I'm running the release version now of 1.0, and I haven't found anything goofy so far. So seems to be some neat additions in there. I like the text, the placing the text, and all of that stuff that he's added. I haven't tried the print and cut. They said that they've revamped the print and cut feature so that it's easy, and I haven't tried that, so I'll have to play with it a little bit.
Has he got any closer to running fiber yet with it?
I know that, well, he's been working on that for years. He's had a fiber for years. And he's been plugging away at it. I'm hoping that he's making some progress. I know that if he can, he will. And if he will, it'll be as soon as he can do it. Because that would be a huge thing.
That's way better than EasyCAD.
Yeah. So I'm sure that's pretty high on his priority list. But that's a tough one to crack, tough nut to crack. So he's been.
I don't think the card manufacturer is going to let that go.
Yeah.
Not without some fighting.
It's pretty proprietary, so he's fighting a lot of battles. So, and it's not just debugging or coding or reverse engineering or any of that kind of stuff. It's all of that, all of the they want to keep it to themselves, and I get it. You know, they want to keep their board proprietary. But man, if you can put a better software out there, they might sell more boards.
Right.
So,
Well, the problem is, why do they need to sell more boards? They're the only people that are really making boards to sell, unless it's a real proprietary.
yeah, Ruida's working on one. I don't know when they're going to come out with it. They've been working on it for a little bit, I've heard. And there's one other company that has open source software, and they'll open source it to you so you can improve on it or make your own. And I forget what the name of that company was. We were going to look at them, but then I think we went back with the big name just because of that.
ACZ.
Yeah.
They sell those dongles so you can use EasyCAD without your laser hooked up. They want like $100 to $150 for those. So I can imagine they'd be pretty hesitant to let that go.
Yeah. Yeah. You used to have a dongle every time, and then they embedded that whatever that code into the computer, so that, you know, into the board, so that it'll see it via USB. But yeah, you can because that would be handy, but I'm not going to pay $150 for it. I'll remote in. So yeah. All right, we got Travis on here again. I haven't sent you that live API link or that stream key yet. I haven't forgotten about it, but I'll try to get it to you for the end of the week.
Oh, that's fine. I'm getting ready to go on vacation for a week anyway, so.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe I'll get it to you the end of next week.
That'll work.
Okay. All right. Well, like I say, anybody that's got anything, fire away.
I was hoping a lady, I can't remember her name right now, was going to get on here. She's looking at a Glowforge, and she was also thinking about Thunder, and she was pretty overwhelmed. And I was like, listen, here's the link. Get on today. Check it out. Hopefully calm your nerves a little bit. I think
Sure.
Todd was also answering some stuff, and I'm not sure if Robert was on that thread or not, but
Right. So, yeah, I've seen a few like that. I think I saw the one that you were talking about, and it's a tough thing to navigate, you know. So there's just a lot of info out there, so a lot of rabbit holes to jump down.
I think she said she's been checking it out for a little bit. So who knows what that? I mean, it could have been a year, it could have been 2 months.
Yeah.
But she's like, I'm tired of doing research.
Yeah. So, well, this would be a good place to get it.
What I thought.
So, all right. Well, like I said, I saw a few more people pop in recently. If you guys have anything, feel free to kick your mic on and go for it. Otherwise, we'll have to come up with something silly to talk about.
I won't be bashful. I'll ask a question here.
All right.
I'm thinking real long and hard about pulling the trigger on a 51-100. And I guess my question at this point, I've done a lot of research, been active in the forums. It's been tremendous help. I've actually been watching some of these on YouTube. So nice to see a lot of faces that I actually, feel like I know you guys a little bit. You don't know me, but I know you. But one thing I would ask, I guess, the group is what if I order the laser? I know it pretty much comes with everything to get started and all that. I'm undecided on rotary just yet. But I guess my question is, what about lenses or anything particular like that? Is there anything else I should order when I order the machine that would be good to have on hand?
If the way I always approached it, especially when I was helping out with sales for a while, and I would not make a good salesman, was why don't you get the machine and try it, and then if you need something else, you'll know when you do, and then you can always order that accessory. There are some people that are maybe going to do a lease option. They want to go ahead and get everything they might possibly need in the package, and that's okay too. The 4-inch lens, if you're going to cut really thick stuff, may not be a bad idea. But before I bought the lens, if you're going to cut thick material, the first thing I would do is external air, another air source, an external compressor instead of the stock one. The stock one will work. But you'll get a lot better, cleaner cuts, especially like if you're going to cut 1/2 inch and things like that. You definitely want to have that extra air.
Right. Yeah. I've got chop air, so that's not going to be a problem at all. I can pipe that right over. And that is of interest to me. So I guess that kind of leads to another question, which is, what kind of thickness can I expect to cut? I mean, I'm thinking most things I'm going to do are probably going to be in the 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch range. but I could foresee some 3/4 inch hardwoods from time to time. Is that, I mean,
That's
is
a
that a
piece of
pretty
cake.
possible thing with that?
No,
If you're
no
not
problem.
high volume production where you have to have 1,000 pieces out a day or something like that, that machine will do. I mean, our 60 watts will cut 1/2 inch. You know, it's a little slower. You know, so that's where you're going to get on your higher powers. You're going to gain some speed on thicker materials. If that's all you did is thick stuff, 1/2 inch and above, I may go, you know, at least 100, maybe the 130. But if you're cutting, you know, 3/16, 1/4 inch, that kind of stuff, even an 80 watt would probably be okay for that. But you do, the 100's a good happy medium. You can still, you know.
Yeah, that's kind of, that's kind of what I'm settling on in my research, and I'm also finding out that the 51 starts being real good as far as being able to run multiple ups and things like that. And I actually have a graphic design and printing background, so I'm really used to doing multiple ups. So that sounds like it's going to make a lot of sense for me.
Yeah, the 51's also good because the pass through is wide enough to fit a full 4x8 sheet through.
Right.
So
Well, right.
that's a big deal for a lot of people. So.
Sure. Right. Okay.
Hey Joe, I cut 3/4 inch solid maple project for my daughter's wedding. I can message you a photo of it when we get off here if you're interested in seeing it. It wasn't super fast, but it worked great.
Yeah.
51-100.
Yeah, and I cut 3/4 inch acrylic on my 80 watt. I cut 3-inch foam. I cut 1/2 inch. I cut 1.5 inch hardwoods. I cut a 2x4 a few weeks ago, a pressure treated 2x4, just to see what would happen. It took a few passes on that, but it did it. So
are you primarily going to be cutting, or are you going to be doing a lot of engraving as well?
I haven't decided yet. I actually have a little bit of a different, couple of different business thoughts, and that from what research I've done, it kind of seems, I mean, obviously I've been self-employed for 20 years, so believe me, I'm used to hustling, but it seems like with the laser, if you have some more, for lack of better words, I'm going to say unique ideas, you're a little more likely to be more successful, maybe a little easier than if you're just doing everything that everybody else does, buying the and I'm not knocking it by any means, but buying the cups or buying, whatever trinket you want and engraving it. I mean, there's a place for all of that, but it seems to me from a business standpoint, you can do some more creative things. Obviously, it's more advantageous to do that.
yeah,
Yeah, you gotta be able to.
Yeah.
Good.
And say, so what I would recommend is if you think you're going to be doing quite a bit of cutting, what I would recommend doing is ordering up a second lens tube without the lens, and then I don't think Thunder sells them yet, but get a 2.5 inch lens. So it'd be a 20 millimeter diameter, 2.5 inch lens. Get one from
American Photonics.
From 2.4.
2.6
or IIVI
2.6
or 2.6 or whatever it is. Yeah, get one from them. Get a 2.5 inch. It just gives you that extra little boost of cutting depth, but it'll still allow you to do some engraving. Of course, if you are going to be doing a lot of engraving, stick with the 2-inch lens, because you will have better results with it. But that 2.5 inch lens is a phenomenal workhorse of a lens. So that's what I would recommend doing, and just get it, in a secondary tube holder. That way you're not having to manually unscrew and take out and physically swap the lenses.
Right. Yeah. Makes sense.
The other thing that I would recommend is, before you settle in on the 50 series laser, check with your local wood supplier if you're going to be doing a lot of the 3 millimeter birch. Because like I'm up in Alaska, so we get our supplies out of Russia, and our sheet good for 3 millimeter birch comes in a 5x5 sheet. So I had to go clear up to the Nova 63 to be able to fit a full sheet on there. So I would just check with your local wood supplier and see if they carry them in 4x4 or 4x8 sheets, or if they carry the 5x5 sheets. Because your local supply house is always going to have a better rate than, of course, getting it shipped into your house.
Right. I buy a pretty fair amount of hardwoods, and I've got I live really close to a big Amish community, and there's a couple of big sawmills and what have you up there. And there's a couple of big outlets, and they actually carry the both the 5x5 and the 4x8s. Some of it depends on exactly what grade you're looking for and things like that. Yeah, those come in 5x5 sheets, but I don't see myself needing that enough to justify jumping up to the 63.
Okay.
But hey, good thought. But yeah, I'm kind of already familiar with that a bit. So, but
Yep.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, and also keep an eye on your sheets, especially if they have different varieties there. You want to watch what the glue lines look like between the layers of ply.
Right.
There's primarily two different ones I use. One of them is a black, and that is the one you do not want. If you have that black adhesive layer, you are going to have a heck of a time trying to get your settings dialed in, because it's going to be changing throughout the wood constantly.
Right.
So just keep an eye on that as well.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Joe, is your traditional, like your Baltic birch, your high quality cabinet grade plywood that's great for woodworking is horrible for laser cutting when you get into the thicker pieces, because there's more of that glue, and especially if you're getting that black glue versus the white glue. And I can go cut a piece of 1 inch thick walnut or maple. I've got a 51-130, no problem. 3/4 inch Baltic birch, I do 4 or 5 passes. Sometimes it doesn't cut through, but because you hit that glue, that it's just not getting right. So that's something to keep in mind too. Actually, your lesser grade plywood on the thicker stuff is actually a lot easier to cut with a laser. Right? So that's something to keep in mind, because what's good for woodworking and is not necessarily as good for laser.
Yeah. And if you deal with a lot of hardwoods, you're going to love it anyway, because it just loves eating up hardwoods.
It does.
That's my favorite.
And it smells so much better too. It smells so much better. Cutting plywood stinks. Cutting acrylic's horrible. Leather's bad. Felt's horrible. And burnt hair, burnt skin. But cutting hardwood smells like your smoker's on, and you're smoking some meat or something. You get that
people.
Burnt wood. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hickory today, and it's not like we were barbecuing.
So these are ones that I commonly cut for hardwoods. These are probably my favorite. This one is a nice mango. Mango cuts beautifully on the lasers, and so does this. See if I can get that pattern to show up there. So, and I believe this one is a cocobolo.
Leopard wood. I think cocobolo.
Yep.
It's not dark enough for cocobolo.
What was that?
I said it doesn't look dark enough for cocobolo. It looked like leopard wood.
No,
yeah, it looked like leopard.
Pretty dried out right now. I've got it down to about a 4% moisture. So, and it's just been rough cut. It's not sanded or anything.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, these lasers, they love hardwood. But yeah, I would say once you break about a 1 inch thickness in hardwood, go ahead and upgrade to the 4-inch lens if you're going to be doing it quite a bit. If it's just once in a while, stick with a 2 or 2.5. You'll be just fine.
Okay. Yeah. Good to know.
I'd also recommend getting an extra lens optics set. When you have the extra set of mirrors, extra lens, you end up being stupid and burning the lens up. Forget to turn your air on or something like that, and then you can have a set there and you're not waiting.
Yeah, I guess that's what I was thinking. That's why I asked that original question about the lens, was because I've heard of that kind of thing, and you'd hate to get a new machine and accidentally make a little mistake like that and be dead in the water for a week waiting for a new lens. So.
Yeah. And let's see.
My solenoid quit pumping and quit working, and I burn up a lens pretty quick without any air in it. Great.
Doesn't take long.
And we've got them. on the site. We've got lenses here, and then I didn't make a full kit because some people just need a lens sometimes. So I put the mirrors in a 3-pack, and I put the lenses separately. So, but you can get some of this stuff, click and order instead of calling sales and them sending you a quote and then you signing it and then them giving it back. And it's easier to click a button and put in your info and go. So we've got links to that on the support site as well.
Hey, Brian, are you guys going to start carrying the 2.5-inch lens?
Probably not, because APC makes a full lens kit and so many people do so many different things. We don't want to start jumping down extra rabbit holes that we don't need to. If somebody gets to the point where they know the difference between the lenses and what they do, then we kind of want them to be able to do whatever they want.
Gotcha.
That might add a little complexity to our, well, number one is, you can only autofocus with the 2-inch lens anyway, so that won't be an issue because you'll have to manually focus with it anyway. But the focal distance will be off. If we start offering 2.5 lenses, then people will, try to put it at 6 millimeters and wonder why it's not working. You know what I mean? We kind of like to keep it simple, and if you want to do stuff like that, you're more than welcome to, and we'll help you support that. But we don't want to throw too many goodies in the bag, or it starts getting muddied a little.
Yeah, and talking of other lenses, right, the APC, if you could get your focal plane between all your lenses to have the same spacing like they do with theirs and their AAA battery there, be awesome, because then you can keep your camera in alignment. You've got one focal distance, you got one depth gauge for setting your focus, and and you don't have to worry about crashing your head when you're changing to a longer lens or anything. Yeah, that's real nice, but yeah, I end up swapping lenses a lot and bouncing around.
It'd be nice if they'd make a lens kit, a third party, even if Steve or somebody would, that actually works with the Thunder's focal system.
Yeah.
And that would be cool, because that's the other thing. All of these aftermarket ones, nothing but the 2-inch lens can be autofocused. But it would be neat if you could come in. I think that has to do with the physical tolerances, the distance the head is away from, the minimum distance it can be. So I think that might have an effect there, especially with that lens kit that APC sets out. But you're right, just having that AAA to focus with for every one makes it pretty easy. So I don't know how that would work in it into Thunder's program, but I know a few people have those. Do you have the that kit?
I do.
Okay. So.
Yeah, and we'll say most everything I do, oddly enough, is with the standard. I've got the full Thunder kit, I've got the full APC kit, and I leave my 2-inch stock lens in probably 90% of the time.
Yeah. I don't make a lot of stuff, but same here.
It's only
the go-to, the workhorse. That's.
Yeah, the 2-inch is definitely your primary workhorse. So, and it looks like we've got someone with a question too, wanting to know the average lifespan of a glass tube. That's a tough one too.
Yeah.
So, it just depends how much you're using it, how hard you're driving it. I've got one I'm going to have to be swapping out here, but that's because I've been pushing it super hard and I've been cutting steel with it. So that one's going to be getting swapped out here probably over the winter.
Yeah. So they spec it at about 2,000 to 4,000 hours on the ones that we have. Most of them are SPT. The 80 watt is a RISI right now. Actually, it's a 90 watt, but same thing.
And that's 2,000 to 4,000 hours at rated power.
At rated power, I guess, but 2 to 4 years is what we equate that to. Now, have we seen people burn one up in a year? Yeah, and it's not. Ours are calibrated, so it never goes over the maximum current that the tube is rated at. But it's just like anything, the harder you run it, But if you're in that kind of a production environment, or even if you're not, you're going to count that tube as a consumable as best you can. You're going to provide some metric there and work that into that. Just like you would toner or copy paper or stickers or anything else that you use, you'd want to ultimately, calculate that into your bottom line so you don't end up eating it. So,
and the other thing kind of along the lines of that question and what Joe was, talking about on sizing his, so he was looking at the 100, right? If he wanted to push the tube life more, didn't need the power of the 130, you could still buy the 130 and run less power through it and get, same result as the 100, and then potentially extend your tube life longer and still have the added power if you need it. So what I'd suggest is, even if you don't think you're going to need the 130, you look at the difference from the 100 to the 130, see if that's justifiable. You're not stepping up into a bigger physical size of the machine. So for me, I looked at the 100 and I ended up going with the 130, and that gives me that added power, so you can actually cut a little bit faster as well. When you dial your settings.
Like he said, you can pull a boat with a V6, or you can pull it with a V8, and the V8 will just do it a little easier. Probably last a little longer. So a lot of it is duty cycle and environment and all of that stuff. So
I'm like you. I was on the fence. I mean, I was looking at the 51 or the 63. I went ahead and went with the 63 100. But I also look at it. I'm expecting to hustle my butt off and get it where I get another laser. I plan on getting a 35, and I'm gonna get the 35 100, and then I'm just gonna upgrade my 63 to the 130. That way, I have the 130 and the 100. But with trying to get everything set up, and I went as big as I could, and money wise or whatever, I just went ahead and decided to stay at the 100 and then just upgrade later on. That's another option. You get the 51 100. I also did it because I plan on doing a lot of engraving also and cutting, but I haven't really figured out what my niche is going to be exactly. So therefore, I kind of hedged my bets to where I'd be more of a middle ground to be able to do whatever, but also went with the 63. That way that people that had a 35 or some smaller needed a bigger job, then that would give me some clients to come to me to get, because I have the bigger machine to do what they want. So that's just, that's kind of how I chose mine.
And that's something, Joe, you'll definitely see is the larger laser. It puts you night and day outside of the Glowforge or we'll say the more hobby lasers, right? Me and my wife talk about it quite often. I'm not in a race to the bottom dollar, right? I'm not going to go compete with Glowforge people cutting out 1/8" stuff and pricing wise. I'll focus on larger stuff, signs, thicker material that I can do that they can't, and then I'll charge accordingly, rather than trying to fight for the bottom end of the market that is, there's a lot more people with a lot less capable, cheaper machines, so they can have a lower price.
Yeah, but you also got to look at your market though. And not everybody can make that assumption right off the bat either. So, like the bigger you go with the laser, the more options you have available to you. That way you can fit kind of in your market wherever you need to.
Yeah.
Joe, I heard you mention
that's
he's around.
exactly kind of my thought. I started out looking at the 35, and then I pretty quickly talked myself into the 51, which was honestly stretching it a little bit financially. Was getting up there a little more than I wanted to go, but it just seems to make a lot more sense. But just space wise and everything else, I'm probably pushing it a little bit too with the 51. So I probably won't be going to the 63, but I can certainly appreciate it.
Yeah.
Joe, I heard you mention Amish country. Were you in Ohio or PA?
I'm in Ohio, St. Clairsville, Ohio.
Oh, out St. C.
Hmm?
It's St. C. I used to live. I'm in Newark now, but I used to live over in Sherrard, over in West Virginia.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you were real close at one time, but
yeah, my daughter's in Glendale. I'm in Newark. I'm only 2 hours from you at max.
Oh, yeah. What machine do you have, Jim?
35. Demo.
Yeah, I got a 3580.
Gotcha. Yeah, and that's if I wanted to see one sometime, Brian, what should I do? Should I go through sales, or I'm not even sure that's necessary, to be honest with you. But
we had started a demo program with some partners. Gary's one, Travis's one. There's probably a few more people on here, and we were setting it up that way, and we still can do that. But what people are starting to do is just get on the global group and going, "Hey, does anybody live near me that has a laser?" And it's kind of negating the whole purpose of having a demo program. But, plus we kind of tabled it with the whole COVID thing, because we just started it right before all that happened. So with all the stuff going on, we kind of tabled it. And then if somebody would call in and say, hey, we'd like to see one, then we work with you accordingly. So yeah, I would just get in touch with Grant or whoever your sales guy is and
Cheyenne.
see. Cheyenne.
Yeah.
It'll be a hot line.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Like I said, I'm only 2 hours out, and I don't have exactly what you want to look like, but you and I could set something up.
Sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the
swing
good
out
thing
by here.
about it. You won't get a good idea if it's a different model as far as dimensions, but operational wise, all the motors are the same. You know, all the controllers are the same. They're identical except for their physical size and the power. So you'd still get a good idea. You know, kicking the tires on one that's not an exact model, you just wouldn't get a.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm figuring you're talking Amish country. You're probably talking Barnesville area. So I figure if you're going that far, then you're only putting yourself an hour and a half for me.
Yeah, I go to up around Charm, Ohio, Sugar Creek area.
Oh,
I go to
you're-
Pine Lot, Hardwoods.
Okay, you're up Sugar Creek. You're only 45 minutes from me when you go up around Berlin.
Yep.
Yeah. If you're going up that far, you would just literally turn around and drop south, east, or
Go
southwest
Buckeyes.
on there, and you're not that far from me.
Sounds good. Yeah, maybe we'll connect then. We'll get together offline maybe.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Let me go over here and check my messages.
Go Buckeyes.
Yep, definitely. Can't wait. It's going to be an interesting season.
Radiation concern.
Waiting on seeing who our starting quarterback is going to be.
I think Keith had asked about, I think, putting that viewing window in. I don't think radiation's a concern. It's mitigated with the proper glass. So yeah, you're right on that. I don't know if we answered that or not. I'm just now going back and looking at that stuff. I'm bad about that. So.
Yeah, I got a question. I mean, it's related, but it's not. I mean, I'm trying to connect with my son, so we're building another computer together or whatever, and I had a lot of the parts and stuff ordered, but I'm about to buy a graphics card, and I went on there for like graphics design, you know, what would be a good card or whatever. Would the graphics card actually help some of the actual quality being sent to the laser, or is it just pretty much all the same?
Nah, and Lightburn doesn't require a lot of heavy graphics anyway. You know, it's
Just
actually pretty
processing.
straightforward.
Yeah,
Processing graphics data that you have on your screen, it's on your computer screen itself. How fast you can digitize, how fast you can vectorize or trace or things like that.
All
But
up
as far as the laser goes, it don't matter.
Now, like
Yeah.
Photoshop, or some of those like ones like Photoshop, some of them will actually pull over to the graphics card dedicated now
Yeah.
with help from your regular memory, so which helps
Yeah.
drastically having a good
So-
graphics card.
If you have a CPU with a separate GPU, most programs are going to automatically pull from the GPU anyways, and the CPU is not going to be worth anything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The
'cause
only benefit there, thing is if you're doing like mock-ups for like product design, if you're doing rendering, you're going to use like ray tracing engines or any photorealistic rendering for product mock-ups, then a GPU does a lot of your heavy lifting there.
Yeah. I mean, as far as the laser goes, it doesn't matter. It's just the G code or whatever. But how fast you want to process your data and your information, 3D CAD, rendering, whatever, that's all going to determine what your clock and speed and everything for your CPU is.
Yeah, and technically, you know, Lightburn it runs so smooth on a bunch of stuff. What you would need to look at is, like they were saying, any of the additional like design suites that you may use. You know, if you use Illustrator or Corel or you do any of that kind of stuff, I would look at their specifications and match theirs, and then it'll for sure be good enough for Lightburn.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty much going to stick with Lightburn in the beginning, probably learn it because, like I said, I mean, that's one of the things that was scared me about the whole situation was learning the softwares and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to try to, do that first, and then if I wanted to branch out. But
yeah, a lot of people, use Corel or something because they've been using it for 20 years. Maybe they
right,
whatever, and they're just used to it. And same with AI and any of these others. But and Lightburn was never meant to be a Corel draw, or that kind of thing anyway, but it's getting pretty darn close with the stuff he's added. There's enough stuff in there now that there's a lot of people that exclusively just use Lightburn and nothing else. It does everything they need it to.
If you had no other baseline to go off of,
Yeah, you wouldn't miss it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Light burn, you wouldn't be missing anything. Like myself, I use Corel for everything because everything I do is Corel based at this point. But yeah, if you never use any other program, Lightburn, you never want really for anything particular until you start getting into more technical uh, and kind of specific type graphics design changes. And even then,
Yeah.
Lightburn does a pretty good job at that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, the only time that you need to start beefing up your computer for doing even design stuff in Illustrator or Corel for laser work is once you get over to something like, we do a lot of work in Fusion 360,
Yep.
and that will hog up a graphics card really fast because you're working in live 3D space.
You almost need a whole new computer just for it.
Yeah, I just had to upgrade one of mine because it was running a little bit too slow and trying to. It took me 3 months just to track down the graphics card for it because there's such a shortage.
Yeah,
Cryptocurrency miners.
So
yeah, man, it's unbelievable the prices.
I'm about to drop a pretty penny on a new computer too for that same reason.
yeah, trust me. Yeah, my new computer, I went with a what was it? It's a Ryzen 9 5950X processor, and we went with a RTX 3090 graphics card.
Nice.
I'm switching everything. I'm going to Intel. Intel's more graphics based.
Oh, I would double check on that now. Those Ryzens are running circles around it.
Man.
Well,
I'll throw another one. Go with M1 and Apple Silicon.
But to get a compatible Ryzen, you're going to be paying almost twice as much. Like I could get a Ryzen Threadripper that will compete with a 9iX whatever, but I'm going to be paying double the price for it.
Yeah. Oh,
So
Threadrippers get really expensive real quick.
So I mean, that's the kind of CPU power I'm looking for. So
I'll share
I mean,
with
I'm
you
not.
guys. I actually have a master of photography degree, so photography pays a lot of my bills, but I do some video editing, and I do some work in Fusion 360 too. Believe it or not, I'm doing all of that, and I have had no hiccups running one of the new Mac M1 laptops, and then I got it going over
phenomenal.
1K over to the to a nice big monitor. And I got to tell you, that thing just smokes everything. So,
Well, yeah, Mac.
the big Apple PC debate, but I got to tell you, the M1 is killing it out there.
Macs are design. They're design machines. I mean, that's what they are. They've always been. So I mean, you take a design Mac versus almost any PC running Intel or whatever, Apple Mac is going to blow it out the water hands down.
Oh yeah, yeah. My big thing, because we run hybrid, we run both Macs and PCs, but most of my design computers are PCs because our primary RIP software that runs all of our printers and cutters only works on PCs.
Yep, that's exactly right.
That's the big drawback in Macs, especially with the new ones. I've had for years. What I did get working is parallels with the new Windows 10 on Big Sur with the M1. That works phenomenal. I'm actually running EasyCAD 2 on my Mac, and not an issue with it.
Yeah. Rick's got a question that he put in the chat. He said he's checked his table level and he's still having problems getting the Nova 24 to cut 1/8" Baltic birch in the front right corner. So if it's not table level and you're having trouble in the front right corner, the only thing I could think of is alignment. That and focus. That's typically going to be what's going to happen, or the material. But if it's happening in one section of the bed, that lends itself to being a thing with the alignment.
The alignment, and the other thing is on checking level, right? Level's the wrong word, right?
Right, it is.
It's the actual focal gap, right? So the spacing between the lens to the bed, right? It can be perfectly flat or level, but have a different gap in the top left versus the bottom right, You
Yeah.
could cut on an incline if everything still maintained the same focal distance. You could have it 45 degrees out and still work. And that's something I see on the Facebook groups a lot of times. Well, I checked its level and it's a problem. You need to check the distance. You need to measure the gap there and ensure that it's consistent.
But is there a tutorial out there? I haven't looked, but is there a 4-point level?
Yeah.
Tutorial on how to do all that?
I think
Yeah.
Robert's got one.
Yeah.
I've got it. I'm linking it now.
That's the same thing with like people that do 3D printing.
Exactly.
They're like, yeah, my bed's level,
but it's worked in the middle. Yeah.
Well, he says it's measuring in all 4 corners. If that's the case,
not trying to knock him, just trying to make a point that a lot of people think like Jeremy's saying, is just because they throw a level on it, they level it off.
Yeah.
Bubble level that everything's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not.
Yeah, I've seen it that way, and I've seen people talk about measuring the distance from the head to the bed in all 4 corners, but calling it level because there's not really a good word.
When you do the 4 corners, not only do you have to make sure that everything is level or symmetrical in that regard, but you also got to your dot is not always going to be dead center on each point. You got to try to
go back to the alignment. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to try to find a happy medium where they all hit in a substantial enough area to consider it level or even. So
I would go back through the alignment. I think that's going to be alignment related as long as your bed does measure the same distance from the nozzle in all 4 corners and the center. Then I would go back and check the alignment again because that's pretty much got to be where it's going to be. That and the focus, but the focus shouldn't change if your bed's level, not level. If
we'll call it square.
Parallel to the X and Y axis.
I think level is the best way to put it. It's just got to be in the right context.
Yeah.
Well, it's like my bed, which I just figured out the other day, that right in the front center of my bed, about 0.5 millimeter high, which I figure is probably I need to get in there and loosen the bolts up and adjust that because I checked all the knives. So where the knife tray sits, I need to get in there and loosen that up and drop it.
You might need to stand on it a little bit and just
I might break it.
But it'll hold 88 pounds is what it's rated for, but it'll hold more like 200 probably.
It might break it.
It's pretty stout.
Just jump up and down on it and get that bow out, and it'll be fine.
I know a guy put a car door in one.
I was wondering if it was a slight bow, or if I didn't put a straight edge on it, or if it's actually just the knives are just a little high in that area that center part might need to drop a little bit.
It may be. That stuff is. I mean, that bed is somewhat rigid, but it's not perfect. So you could have one knife up a little bit higher. You may want to do a couple of tests just from the knife blade and just eliminate the honeycomb altogether, and check it that way. Make sure the actual frame is true. You know what I mean? And then you can look for deviations in how the honeycomb is sitting on it. It may be that one of those indexing pins isn't seated properly or something. Sometimes they get a little weird.
Yeah, I just haven't bothered to grab a straight edge out and pull everything out, because I figured 0.5 millimeter hasn't affected me in the front center yet.
Yeah.
I just happened to notice because I'm like, why is this gap weird here? And then when I measured focus on it, because I was cutting right there, and I'm like, well, this is odd, and that's the only reason why I noticed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, on a 2-inch or larger lens, 0.5 millimeter is not gonna be that big of a difference. But if you get into like the HR head, you'll see a 0.5 millimeter on an HR head without a problem.
Mm-hmm.
What's funny though is you start looking at it, and you can actually just the point now, and I'm starting to get to the point I can visually see roughly guesstimate by eye level of how close I am. It's weird how your brain reprograms. Of course, I mean, I'm a woodworker, so I mean, I'm used to doing that anyways. But
1/4 inch is pretty easy to visualize if you're used to messing with that for a while. I mean, that's just the 1/4 inch is kind of ingrained. 6 millimeters, because I can kind of eyeball it too, or I think I'll move it to where I think it ought to be and measure it, and usually I'm pretty close.
Yeah, Rick's got another question on alignments. What do you mean by alignments, Rick? We're referring to the beam alignment. So when you come out of the CO2 tube, you come through the beam combiner, you hit your first mirror, come up your second mirror, and then out. That could be off in the far extents, right? So in your front right corner, if you're off by a fraction of a degree on that beam, it'll compound over the distance.
Yeah, and I linked the article. The top article is the one that Chris made, and he uses the red dot for alignment. And for a lot of people, if they're just tweaking stuff, everybody uses that and seems to be okay with it. But if you're troubleshooting something, I would recommend using the OEM alignment, and that's where you totally disregard the red dot until the very end, and you walk it in after you've aligned your actual CO2 laser, which is, of course, what the most important part is. So I would follow the second video in that article.
Plus, you get to set tape on fire.
Yeah. There's a third way also, which is actually the way that I personally like doing it, which is a reverse alignment. And it's a special laser that slides into the lens tube housing and shoots the light going backwards.
Yeah, I've got one of those. But when we clamp it up in our grip, in our head, that little flat side makes it eccentrically loaded, and it moves it off center just a little bit.
Really? Mine doesn't do that. Mine doesn't have a flat side though.
Oh, it doesn't?
No, mine's perfectly round.
I got you. Mine's got a little flat side on it, and when you clamp it down, it compresses it and it moves just a little bit off center. So I
you got the American Photonics one, Brian?
Yeah. I got to find it now. I actually glued it. I actually hot glued it into a piece of wood that I cut out to put it in a gravograph and try to use it in that machine. So I got to pull it out of the little fixture I made.
Yeah, I bought one of them. I'm not using it yet, but yeah, it come in the set with the lenses. So.
Let's see. Okay.
And mine might be a little bit different too, because mine isn't actually built for the Thunders. Mine's built for a Boss.
Gotcha.
There you go.
But yeah, they seem pretty neat. The batteries are a little convoluted. I wish there was a little push button on top or something instead of having to unscrew it and all the batteries fall out when you don't want to use it. So
they're just trying to keep you on your toes, you know.
Oh yeah, no, it's a neat tool. It's a good principle actually. So and then you know they make the tubes now that have the red dot integrated in. Actually, the beam combiner is just built into the output coupler. And Rick said he tried to tape. Yeah, he said he was pulsing so hard that the tape was catching fire. Yeah, if you hit the power button on the controller itself, that's the default setting.
All you gotta do is go in and adjust your min pulse, max pulse. That way, when you hit it, it won't do that.
Yeah, but it's way more fun when it does do it.
Well, until you gotta clean the smoke off the lens, and then you smoke check your lens.
Luckily, all of our lenses, well, at least a couple of them have brackets on them, so you put the tape on the bracket instead of the mirror. So if you do flame it up, it doesn't hit the mirror. Of course, the third one you don't have to worry about that too much because it's inside the head. But yeah, you can hit the power button on the controller and adjust the default pulse power down from there, and then the speed setting on there when you're normally working, that's the transversal speed when you jog the laser. So that's what those top two values are in the control panel in the upper right, is the default speed and default power for jogging and for pulsing. So you can turn that down.
I mean, you can speed it up if you want to like actually drag the head through your honeycomb bed faster.
Right. You could do that. Mine was going pretty slow. I wonder if that would have made a difference.
Well, it might have slapped the e-stop quicker, right?
And you know, if it was a stepper, that probably wouldn't have happened. It would have just started jumping.
Missteps, yeah.
Yeah, but since it was fighting its way, it was pushing its way through there like a linebacker.
So what I keep doing is I end up I've not drug my head through, but my little standoffs and clips and stuff holding down projects, holding the bow out of plywood, I'll catch one of those just right.
Have you sheared any of them off?
Oh yeah, so I've broken quite a few of them. Yeah, I found out I'm better off cutting them, so I bought some of the little 3D printed ones. I 3D printed a new version myself. I found I'm better off cutting them out of 1/8 inch where they will break. They're the weak point, and designed them more like a traditional woodworking holdfast. So you kind of use that little bit of a cant in it to hold it. That way, if anything hits it, it breaks. All right, there you go. You stand off there.
This is my tool for holding stuff up. I love it to death. So they're
a magnet on a stud.
Yeah, they're magnetic spikes.
Oh, okay. Because I made a pin bed
actually,
one time with those little spikes, but they had little screws, and that took a long time, and that was a pain.
Yeah, we're actually going to be I'll be selling these in our online store here pretty soon. But yeah, they're like a perfect little height to do everything on, and I love them. I use them all the time. And because they're magnetic, you can set up your bed with all the spikes around it, and then you can take thin little neodymium magnets on top to hold it down in place to those spikes.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah, and I ended up finding some that weren't the spikes. They look kind of like almost like chess pawns that were magnetic. That pretty much do the same. But yeah, if you're cutting through something, you'll get a little bit of a reflection if you cut right over the top of it. But, yeah, and then the other thing is I've ended up cutting a bunch of little standoffs with with the laser. Trying to eat up those last little bits of scrap where you cut a project out. There's a little bit on the edge. Every time I do that, I just lay out as many hold downs. I actually make I made some little cardboard clips I make instead of taping up boxes. When you lay out like a little sign or something to deliver it, it's cardboard on both ends, and it just like friction fit over it. Make little clips for it. And try to use up as much scrap as possible.
So this is kind of off topic, but I bought some of these. These are 3D printed stands, LED bases for the LED edge lit.
Okay.
And I ordered these. Yeah, I ordered these from Germany. The guy lives in Austria, and they're very well done. And these little cheap cutting boards work real good for the top piece. And it comes with a 40 LED strip and a Wi-Fi integrated module that you use an app on your phone to control it. So you can have 4 layers of 2mm acrylic in there. So you have 4 different colors or combinations or effects on 4 different layers. And
okay, so kind of like almost like a shadow box type effect.
Yeah, I've got a video of it. Get with it. Okay, that's cool, Jason. I've got a video on it, but these things are kind of small. But I made one the other day and had about an 8x5 acrylic 4-layer sign on it. And I sold it for $200. I couldn't believe it. So I'm gonna look at getting these chips because I can't order it from Austria every time. I mean, I guess I can.
What chip is that? Is that the ESP30?
Yeah,
ESP32 or whatever.
Let me see if I'm blind. Hey Google, illuminate the magnifier. Let me see. It's ESP. What is it? 8266.
Yeah, you should be able to find those. A couple bucks a piece on eBay, or they use them a lot in Arduino Raspberry Pi projects.
Yeah, so I'm gonna try that, and I've got the firmware for it. What's that?
AliExpress, Alibaba.
Yeah.
We can get them from anywhere, but I just got a few as a prototype to see what they were like, and I kind of like them, so I'm gonna do something similar, especially if I can get $200 a piece for them.
Yep. No, else you can get a lot of money for it.
Green. The blue moose turned green. You're the green moose now.
Yeah, I'm playing with my LED lights in here.
Okay. Well, cool. Oh, shoot. I'm a little bit over, and I think I've got to catch up on a few things, so I guess I'm going to call this quits. There he goes. Now he's the purple moose. If you change too many colors, you might end up with some crazy word, so be careful. So, does anybody else have any last-minute questions or anything?
Hey Joe, I sent you that photo of that 3/4 inch maple we cut.
Cool.
Okay, sounds good, Gary. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Well, cool, guys. I guess I'll jump over here and get back to work. I better quit playing on the internet and get back and help some people. So
later, everybody.
Anyway, take care, man. Feel better. Let me know if I can do anything for you.
Will do.
And I guess I'll catch the rest of you guys next week. And Travis, I'll catch you week after next with a key or something. You can just hit me up when you get back in and get settled.
Yeah, because I was gonna do once we get that key, I'll do that little thing on how to help people who are just starting out make some money on it and get their, get it so they're making between 80 to 100 bucks an hour with their laser, something like that.
That sounds good. Yeah, Mike's got his thumbs up over there, so you got to vote from him. He's waiting.
Although I'm about to start calling him Ginger because that's what his name shows as.
I'm lucky I remembered because I have his card sitting right here I'm still looking at. Otherwise, I'm terrible with names, and I probably would have called him George or something.
George. All right. Well, I will see you guys later. I need to get back to work too. So
okay. Take care.
Technical difficulties here.
No worries. So, all right, guys.
I hope you have a fan you're sitting under if your garage is as hot as mine.
Yeah, it's 90 in here, but it's actually kind of pleasant. I've got the doors closed and I've got a fan going and it's just fine. But I'm going to do the mini split next season for sure.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that a new laser will pay for mine pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I guess we'll catch you next week. Have a good week, good rest of the week and weekend. All right. Take care.